Captain Dongwu stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel Indomitable. The ship was small compared to most military vessels. Only 300 crew members called it home. They had been traveling through deep space for 6 months searching for new worlds suitable for human colonies. The bridge was quiet except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. Lieutenant He-jin sat at her communication station, reviewing the latest reports from Earth. Yoon-seo worked at her weapons console running routine maintenance checks on their defensive systems. Everything seemed normal until the proximity alarms began to sound. "Captain, we have multiple contacts approaching from Sector 7, He-jin announced. Her voice remained steady, but Dongwu could hear the tension underneath. "They are big, sir. Really big." Dongwu moved to the main viewing screen and watched as massive shapes emerged from behind the nearby moon. The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They were dark gray with sharp angular designs that made them look like giant spears floating in space. Each ship was at least 10 times larger than the Indomitable. "How many ships are we looking at, Lieutenant?" Dongwu asked. "Sensors show at least 50 vessels, sir. But there might be more hiding behind the larger ones," He-jin replied. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel trying to get more detailed readings. The alien fleet moved in perfect formation. Their ships spread out in a pattern that surrounded the small human vessel completely. There was no escape route available. Dongwu had seen similar tactics used by human naval forces back on Earth. These aliens knew how to wage war. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," He-jin reported. "It's coming through on multiple frequencies. They want to talk." "Put it on the main screen," Dongwu ordered. The viewing screen flickered and changed to show the interior of an alien bridge. The creature that appeared was tall and muscular with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray metal. Its eyes glowed red and its mouth was filled with sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was deep and threatening. "I am General Kekstar of the Vorthak Empire," the alien announced. "You are trespassing in territory that belongs to us. Your species has been expanding into space without permission. This ends now." Dongwu stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "I am Captain Dongwu of the human vessel Indomitable. We are explorers seeking new worlds for peaceful settlement. We mean no harm to your empire." General Kekstar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful settlement. That is what they all say before they bring their weapons and their armies. We have heard these words from 47 different species. Now those species serve us or they are extinct." The alien general moved closer to his own viewing screen. His red eyes seemed to burn with anger. "Your species will surrender all claims to space beyond your home system. You will provide us with detailed maps of your colonies and military installations. You will also send us 1 million of your people to serve as workers in our mines." Yoon-seo looked up from her weapons console. Her face was pale, but her hands remained steady on the controls. "Captain, our shields are at maximum, but they won't hold long against that many ships. Their weapons are charging." Dongwu nodded but kept his attention on the alien general. "And if we refuse your demands, then you will face the full might of the Vorthak military," Kekstar replied. His forearms gestured toward something off-screen. "I lead 1 million warriors spread across 500 star systems. We have destroyed civilizations that possess technology far beyond what your scanners show on your primitive vessel. Surrender now and some of your people might survive." The bridge fell silent. Everyone waited for their captain's response. Dongwu had commanded ships for 15 years. He had faced pirates and hostile alien encounters before, but nothing like this. The Vorthak clearly possessed superior numbers and technology. Any reasonable military officer would consider negotiating or retreating. But Dongwu was not like other military officers. He had grown up on the streets of Seoul before joining the space service. He had learned that sometimes the best defense against overwhelming odds was to be completely unpredictable. A small smile appeared on Dongwu's face. "General Kekstar, you say you lead 1 million warriors. That's very impressive." The alien general seemed confused by the human's calm reaction. "You understand the hopelessness of your situation, then?" "Oh, I understand perfectly," Dongwu replied. His smile grew wider. "You have 1 million warriors? That's good news for me." "Good news," Kekstar repeated. His red eyes narrowed. "Explain this strange response, human." Dongwu clasped his hands behind his back and looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes. "It's simple, General. You have 1 million warriors, which means I have endless targets." The alien general stared at the human captain for several long seconds. The confidence in Kekstar's voice wavered slightly when he spoke again. "You mock me with your words, human. Your single small ship cannot threaten my empire. Maybe not, Dongwu agreed. But you're thinking about this the wrong way. You see numbers and overwhelming force. I see opportunities and possibilities. Your million warriors have to eat and sleep and breathe. They need supplies and fuel and places to rest. Every single one of them is a potential weak point I can exploit. Yunseo watched her captain with amazement. She had served under Dongwu for 3 years, but had never seen him so calm when facing impossible odds. The weapons specialist began to understand what her captain was really doing. He was not just refusing to surrender. He was trying to get inside the alien's head. Furthermore, General, your ships might be bigger than mine, but size creates disadvantages too. Large ships move slowly and need more energy to change direction. They make excellent targets for smaller, faster vessels that know how to use speed and stealth effectively. General Kekstar's forearms moved restlessly. You speak of tactics as if your primitive species understands warfare. We have conquered entire galaxies, human. And that might be your biggest weakness, Dongwu replied quietly. You've gotten used to enemies who fight the way you expect them to fight. You've developed strategies based on conventional thinking. But humans don't think conventionally, General. We adapt, we improvise. We find ways to win that nobody else even considers possible. The transmission ended abruptly. The alien general had cut off communication. But the damage was already done. Dongwu could see the uncertainty in Kekstar's eyes before the screen went dark. Captain, what are your orders? Heijin asked. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Dongwu replied. Tell them we've made first contact with a hostile empire, and tell them to prepare for visitors who think they understand how humans fight. The Indomitable hung in space, surrounded by 50 alien warships. But for the first time since the encounter began, Captain Dongwu felt like his people had a chance. Admiral Subin received Captain Dongwu's message while she was reviewing defense plans in Earth Command's main operations center. The massive underground facility stretched for kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. Thousands of military personnel worked around the clock monitoring human colonies across dozens of star systems. The message from the Indomitable changed everything. Within minutes, alarms were sounding throughout the facility. Admiral Subin called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. The war room filled quickly with Earth's top military commanders and strategic planners. Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing our first major alien threat, Subin announced to the assembled officers. The Vorthak Empire has conquered 47 star systems. They possess superior numbers and technology. According to Captain Dongwu's report, they have at least 1 million warriors. Colonel Taeho studied the tactical data on his portable screen. He had spent 20 years fighting in various human conflicts before joining the Space Defense Forces. Admiral, this General Kekstar seems to follow traditional military doctrine. Mass formations, overwhelming firepower, and direct confrontation, very similar to how Earth armies fought centuries ago. That could work in our favor, Colonel, Admiral Subin replied. What do we know about their previous conquests? Lieutenant Commander Nara stepped forward with additional intelligence reports. Based on intercepted communications, we believe the Vorthak defeated their enemies through conventional space battles. They would appear with massive fleets and demand surrender. Most species either submitted immediately or fought brief defensive campaigns before being overwhelmed. Admiral Subin nodded thoughtfully. So they expect their enemies to fight the same way they do. Large fleets meeting in open space with the stronger force winning through superior numbers. Exactly, Admiral, Colonel Taeho confirmed. But humans have never fought wars that way. Even our space conflicts have emphasized mobility deception and unconventional tactics. The Admiral turned to address the entire room. Then we give them something they have never encountered before. We implement Protocol Endless immediately. Protocol Endless was a strategy that had been developed by human military theorists over several decades. It was based on lessons learned from every major conflict in human history. The protocol assumed that humanity would always be outnumbered and outgunned when fighting alien species. Therefore, human forces would need to use every possible advantage to level the playing field. Within hours of the meeting, commands were sent to every human colony and military installation. The orders seemed strange to outside observers but made perfect sense to humans who understood their own history of warfare. On the agricultural world of New Jeju, Governor Hyunsu received instructions to begin immediate evacuation procedures. But instead of loading civilians onto transport ships, he ordered them to move into underground shelters that had been built years earlier. The shelters were connected by a network of tunnels that stretched across the entire continent. "Sir, the evacuation ships are ready to depart," reported his aide, Captain Minwoo. "But according to Protocol Endless, we are supposed to stay and prepare defensive positions." Governor Hyun-soo smiled grimly. "Captain, the Vorthak will expect us to run or surrender when they arrive. Instead, they will find a population that has simply vanished underground. Let them try to conquer an empty planet while we attack their supply lines from below." Meanwhile, on the mining colony of New Busan, Engineer Bo-ram was receiving very different orders. Her job was to turn civilian mining equipment into weapons of war. The massive rock crushers used to process asteroid ore could be modified to launch projectiles at incredible speeds. The industrial fusion reactors that powered the mining operations could be overloaded to create devastating explosions. Bo-ram, "We need every piece of equipment converted within 72 hours, ordered." Colonel Jin A, who had been sent from Earth Command to coordinate the planet's defense. When the Vorthak arrive, they should see a helpless mining colony. They won't realize that every civilian facility has become a military asset. Bo-ram wiped grease from her hands and looked at the massive mining complex around her. "Colonel, by the time I'm finished, this place will look like a mining operation but fight like a battleship. The aliens won't know what hit them." Similar preparations were taking place throughout human space. On research stations, scientists were developing new weapons using principles the Vorthak had never encountered. Dr. Yoonji worked with a team of xenobiologists to create viruses that would target alien computer systems. The viruses would be disguised as routine communications and spread through enemy networks like a plague. The beauty of this approach is that the Vorthak think in terms of physical warfare. Dr. Yoonji explained to her research team. They expect battles between ships and soldiers. They probably never considered that their own communication systems could become weapons against them. At the same time, Captain Woo-seok was training civilian pilots to fly cargo ships that had been secretly modified with military hardware. The freighters looked exactly like normal commercial vessels, but carried enough firepower to destroy smaller warships. These disguised combat ships would blend in with regular space traffic until the moment they were needed. "Remember, people, you are not soldiers," Captain Woo-seok told his trainees. "You are merchants and traders and cargo haulers who happen to be carrying some very special cargo. The enemy will ignore you right up until you start shooting at them." The most important aspect of Protocol Endless was its decentralized command structure. Unlike the Vorthak military, which seemed to rely on rigid hierarchy and central control, human forces were designed to operate independently. Each colony and installation received general guidelines, but local commanders were expected to adapt those guidelines to their specific situations. This confused the Vorthak. Intelligence officers who were trying to understand human military organization. They intercepted human communications and found thousands of different voices giving orders. There was no single command center to target and no supreme leader whose capture would end human resistance. "Sir, we cannot determine their command structure," reported Subcommander Vextar to General Kexter aboard the Vorthak flagship. "Every human settlement seems to have multiple leaders making independent decisions. There is no pattern to their military hierarchy." General Kextar studied the intelligence reports with growing frustration. This makes no sense. How can they coordinate military operations without centralized command? It should create chaos and confusion. "Perhaps that is exactly what they want, sir," Vextar replied carefully. "Chaos and confusion might be advantages when fighting a conventional military force like ours." Back on Earth, Admiral Subin was receiving reports from colonies throughout human space. Every settlement was implementing its own version of Protocol Endless. Some were building hidden fortifications, others were preparing to evacuate into deep space only to return later as guerrilla forces. A few were openly preparing for siege warfare while secretly planning to surrender and then attack from within. Colonel Tae-ho reviewed the overall strategic situation. "Admiral, the Vorthak will expect us to mass our fleets for a decisive battle. Instead, they will find scattered resistance that they cannot predict or counter effectively. Every time they think they have won, another threat will emerge from an unexpected direction." "Good," Admiral Subin replied. "Let them try to conquer an enemy that refuses to be conquered." Captain Dongwu was right. Their million warriors have just become our endless targets. The preparation phase was complete. Now humanity waited for the Vorthak Empire to learn what it meant to fight a species that had spent its entire history at war with itself. General Kekstar stood on the bridge of his flagship as the massive Vorthak fleet moved through hyperspace toward the Kepler Nebula system. 200,000 warships traveled in perfect formation behind his command vessel. The general felt confident about this first major assault against human space. "Sub-Commander Vextar, what do our scouts report about the target system?" Kekstar asked. "Sir, the humans appear to have only light defenses in the Kepler system," Vextar replied, while studying his tactical displays. "We detect perhaps 50 small patrol ships and a few orbital defense platforms. There are several asteroid mining colonies, but they seem to be civilian operations." General Kekstar nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent. We will demonstrate Vorthak military superiority by crushing their defenses quickly. The other human colonies, we'll see what happens to those who resist our empire." The Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler Nebula system. Immediately, the alien sensors began detecting strange readings. The system was filled with dense gas clouds that interfered with their scanning equipment. Asteroid fields drifted throughout the area, creating natural obstacles for large ships. "Sir, this system topology is more complex than our intelligence indicated," reported Navigator Kekstar. "The gas nebulae are blocking our long-range sensors. We cannot get clear readings on human defensive positions." "No matter," General Kekstar replied. "We have overwhelming numerical superiority. Order the fleet to advance in standard battle formation. We will sweep through this system and destroy any resistance we encounter." What the Vorthak general did not know was that the Kepler system had been carefully prepared for exactly this type of assault. Captain Jin Ho commanded a small squadron of ships that looked like ordinary cargo freighters. His vessels were hidden deep within the asteroid fields, using the natural rock formations to mask their energy signatures. "Captain, the alien fleet is entering the system," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Su Jin. "They are moving in the standard formation just as command predicted they would." Captain Jin Ho smiled as he watched the enemy fleet on his sensors. "Perfect. Signal all units to maintain radio silence until we reach attack position. Remember, people, we want them deep inside our trap before we spring it." The Vorthak fleet moved slowly through the gas clouds and asteroid fields. Their large ships had difficulty navigating the narrow passages between floating rocks. Several times smaller asteroids struck the hulls of alien vessels, causing minor damage. The delays frustrated General Kekstar, who was accustomed to swift, decisive battles. "This system is a navigational nightmare," complained Navigator Kekstar. "Our ships are not designed for this type of terrain. We should withdraw and attack a more suitable target." "Absolutely not," General Kekstar replied firmly. "We will not be defeated by rocks and gas clouds. Continue the advance." Deep in the B asteroid belt, former miner Yunji guided human forces through passages that had been mapped over many years of mining operations. She knew every tunnel and hiding place in the entire system. Her small ship moved silently between the rocks, leading a group of human fighters toward their attack positions. "Follow my lead exactly," Yunji transmitted to the ships behind her. "These passages are narrow, but they will bring us right behind the enemy formation. The aliens have no idea these tunnels exist." Meanwhile, teenager Minho worked from a hidden base built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The young computer expert had been studying Vorthak communication systems ever since Captain Dongwu's first encounter. He had discovered several weaknesses in alien technology that could be exploited. "Their navigation computers rely on a centralized network," Minho explained to his supervisor, Engineer Taimin. "If I can insert my virus into their system, it will spread to every ship in their fleet. They will start receiving false position data and collision warnings." "Do it," Engineer Taimin ordered. "But wait until they are deep inside the asteroid field. We want maximum confusion when their systems start failing." The Vorthak fleet continued its advance deeper into the system. General Kekstar became increasingly annoyed by the slow progress. His ships were strung out in a long line as they navigated through the asteroid passages. The tight formations that made Vorthak tactics so effective were impossible to maintain in this terrain. "Sir, we are detecting some unusual readings from the asteroids around us," reported sensor operator Zixnall. "There appear to be artificial structures built into some of the larger rocks. They could be human installations." "Probably mining facilities," General Kekstar replied dismissively. "Destroy any that pose a threat to our passage. We cannot allow civilian installations to delay our advance. That was exactly what the humans had been waiting for. As soon as the Vorthak ships opened fire on what they thought were mining stations, the entire asteroid field came alive with hidden weapons. Structures that had appeared to be ordinary rock formations suddenly revealed missile launchers and energy cannons. Captain Jinho gave the attack signal to his squadron. All units, this is Hammer Leader. Execute Operation Endless Hunt. Fire at will. The cargo freighters that had been hiding throughout the system suddenly dropped their disguises. Fake hull plating fell away, revealing military-grade weapons systems. The ships that the Vorthak had ignored as harmless civilian vessels were actually powerful combat craft. At the same moment, Minho activated his computer virus. The alien navigation systems immediately began receiving false data. Vorthak ships started reporting collision dangers that did not exist. Their formation dissolved into chaos as vessels tried to avoid imaginary obstacles. "Sir, our navigation network is compromised," Navigator Kexter reported with panic in his voice. "Ships throughout the fleet are reporting system failures. We are receiving contradictory position data." General Kextar watched in horror as his perfectly organized fleet fell apart. Ships collided with asteroids because their sensors showed clear space. Other vessels fired on each other after their systems identified friendly ships as enemy contacts. The disciplined advance turned into complete confusion. "All units maintain visual navigation," the general ordered. "Ignore the computer systems and navigate by sight alone." But the damage was already done. The Vorthak fleet was scattered throughout the asteroid field with ships separated from their support vessels. This was exactly what the human forces had planned. Instead of facing an organized military formation, they now fought isolated groups of confused enemies. Yunji led her fighters out of the hidden asteroid tunnels, directly behind a group of Vorthak cruisers. The alien ships never detected the approaching humans because they emerged from directions that should have been solid rock. "Target their engines first," Yunji commanded. "We want to disable them, not destroy them. Crippled ships will block the passages and trap more enemies." Throughout the system, similar attacks were taking place. Human forces appeared from every direction using tactics that the Vorthak had never encountered. Weapons fired from inside asteroids. Ships attacked from tunnels that alien sensors could not detect. Even the space debris seemed to come alive as camouflaged human vessels revealed themselves. Captain Jinho's squadron concentrated on the larger Vorthak warships. The alien vessels were powerful, but they could not maneuver effectively in the tight confines of the asteroid field. The smaller human ships darted between the rocks like insects attacking much larger prey. "Focus fire on the command ship," Captain Jinho ordered. "If we can damage their communications, the rest of their fleet will be even more confused." General Kextar felt his confidence crumbling as reports came in from throughout his fleet. 30% of his ships had been destroyed or disabled. The humans were fighting like nothing he had ever seen. They used the terrain as a weapon. They turned his own technology against him. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be everywhere at once. "Sir, we must withdraw," Subcommander Vexstar urged. "Our forces are being destroyed piecemeal. We cannot fight effectively in this environment." For the first time in his military career, General Kextar gave the order to retreat. But even withdrawal proved difficult. The asteroid field that had trapped his fleet now prevented rapid escape. Human forces harassed the fleeing aliens every step of the way, turning an orderly retreat into a panicked flight. As the surviving Vorthak ships finally escaped the Kepler system, General Kextar realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare had just been proven wrong. The humans had turned his greatest strength into a weakness, and his confident advance into a humiliating defeat. The war had been raging for 8 months across dozens of star systems. What began as a simple conquest for the Vorthak Empire had become a nightmare of constant surprise attacks and impossible losses. General Kextar sat in his command chamber studying reports from battles throughout human space. Every engagement told the same story. Vorthak forces would achieve initial success only to find themselves trapped in elaborate human schemes. "Sir, we have received communications from 17 different alien species," reported Subcommander Vexstar. "They are all watching this conflict with great interest. Some are offering to mediate peace negotiations. General Kekstar looked up from his tactical displays with tired eyes. Peace negotiations. They think we are losing to these humans. Are we not, sir? Kekstar asked carefully. The general did not answer immediately. In 8 months of fighting, the Vorthak had lost over 300,000 ships and nearly 500,000 warriors. The humans had lost far fewer vessels, but their casualties were also mounting. More importantly, the psychological cost of this war was becoming unbearable for both sides. On the agricultural world of Nu, Busan Governor Hyunwoo received the latest intelligence, reports about approaching Vorthak forces. The enemy was planning to target civilian populations in hopes of forcing human surrender. Hyunwoo knew that his planet held strategic importance because it supplied food to 12 other human colonies. "Sir, the evacuation ships are ready," reported his military advisor, Colonel Su Min. "We can have all civilians off planet within 6 hours." Governor Hyunwoo shook his head. "Colonel, if we evacuate, then the Vorthak will simply occupy our farms and use them to feed their own forces. We cannot allow that to happen." "Then what do you suggest, sir?" Colonel Su Min asked. "We turn this entire planet into a trap," Hyunwoo replied grimly. "Every farm, every city, every single building becomes a weapon against the invaders. When they arrive, they will find what looks like a helpless agricultural world. But appearances can be very deceiving." The decision to defend New Busan represented something new in the war. Until now, human forces had focused on military targets and avoided direct threats to civilian populations. But the Vorthak strategy of targeting non-combatants forced humans to make difficult choices about how far they were willing to go. Dr. So-young worked in a secret laboratory beneath the surface of the research, Station Kepler 7. Her job was developing biological weapons, specifically designed to target Vorthak physiology. The work troubled her deeply because it crossed ethical lines that humans had respected for centuries. "The virus will attack their respiratory systems," So-young explained to her research team. "It spreads through the air and remains active for weeks in enclosed spaces like spacecraft. Once infected, a Vorthak warrior will be unable to fight effectively." "Doctor, this weapon could kill millions of aliens," protested her assistant researcher Junsu. "Are we prepared to accept responsibility for that level of destruction?" So-young paused in her work and looked at the young scientist. "Junsu, the Vorthak have enslaved or exterminated 47 different species. They came to our space with the intention of doing the same to humanity. Sometimes survival requires making choices that we never wanted to make. The moral weight of these decisions affected everyone involved in the human war effort. Captain Dongwoo had been promoted to admiral after his successful defense of 3 different star systems. But the victories came at a cost that haunted him during quiet moments between battles. "Admiral, we have captured 18 Vorthak, prisoners from the latest engagement," reported his intelligence officer, Commander Yun-ho. "They are requesting permission to speak with you directly." Admiral Dongwoo made his way to the detention area of his flagship. The captured Vorthak warriors looked very different from the confident soldiers he had faced at the beginning of the war. These aliens appeared tired and confused. Some showed signs of psychological trauma that Dongwoo recognized from human veterans of long conflicts. "I am Admiral Dongwoo," he announced to the prisoners. "You requested to speak with human command staff." The senior Vorthak prisoner stepped forward. "I am Battle Leader Texmore. Admiral, we need to understand something about your species. Why do you continue fighting when victory seems impossible? Our empire has resources and warriors that dwarf your entire civilization." Admiral Dongwoo studied the alien warrior carefully. "Battle Leader, your empire conquers through overwhelming force. You expect enemies to surrender when faced with superior numbers. But humans have spent thousands of years fighting against impossible odds. We learned long ago that victory is not always about having the most soldiers or the biggest weapons." "Then what is victory about?" Texmore asked. "Victory is about refusing to give up," Dongwoo replied. "It is about finding new ways to fight when the old ways fail. Most importantly, victory is about making the cost of conquest higher than the value of what is being conquered." The captured Vorthak warriors exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand something that their military doctrine had never considered. The humans were not fighting to win in any traditional sense. They were fighting to make the war too expensive for the Vorthak. Empire to continue. War correspondent Jiwoo traveled throughout human space, documenting the psychological impact of the conflict on both military personnel and civilians. Her reports painted a picture of a species that was being transformed by constant warfare. Humans were becoming harder and more ruthless, but they were also becoming more creative and adaptive. The soldiers I interview tell me the same thing, Jiwoo reported in her latest article. They no longer think about individual battles or even individual campaigns. They think about making every single engagement cost the enemy more than they can afford to lose. It is a different kind of military thinking. On New Busan, the trap that Governor Hyun-woo had prepared was about to be tested. Vorthak landing ships descended toward what appeared to be defenseless farming communities. The aliens expected to find helpless civilians who would surrender immediately when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they found farms that had been converted into fortified positions. Grain silos concealed missile launchers. Irrigation systems had been modified to distribute poison gas. Even the livestock had been weaponized with explosive devices that could be remotely triggered. "So the first wave of landing craft has been destroyed," reported Colonel Soo-min. "But more ships are approaching. They are beginning to realize that this is not a normal agricultural planet." Governor Hyun-woo watched the battle from his underground command center. "Good. Let them learn that there is no such thing as an easy target in human space. Every world they attack will cost them more than they expect to pay." The battle for New Busan lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Vorthak had technically captured the planet, but at enormous cost. 2/3 of their landing force had been eliminated. The farms they had wanted to use for food production were completely destroyed. Most importantly, the humans had once again demonstrated their willingness to turn anything into a weapon. General Kekstar received the reports from New Busan with growing despair. "Sub-Commander, how many more planets like this can we afford to conquer?" "Sir, at this rate of losses, we will exhaust our military reserves within 2 years," Kekstar replied honestly. "The humans are making every victory cost more than we can sustain." For the first time since the war began, General Kekstar started to consider the possibility that the Vorthak Empire might not win this conflict. The humans had achieved something that no other species had managed. They had made themselves too expensive to conquer. The war was far from over, but the balance of power was shifting. The aliens still possessed superior numbers and technology, but the humans had something more valuable. They had the willingness to pay any price and fight in any way necessary to preserve their freedom. That determination was slowly grinding down the greatest military force in the galaxy. 1 year after the war began, General Kekstar made a desperate decision. The Vorthak Empire was bleeding ships and warriors in every engagement with human forces. The conquest that should have taken weeks was now threatening the stability of the entire empire. Kekstar decided to consolidate his remaining 400,000 ships for a final assault on the Vorthak, homeworld's outer defense perimeter. "Sub-Commander, we will gather every available vessel at Vorthak Prime," the general announced to his staff. "If the humans want to continue this war, they will have to come to us. We will make our final stand in our own space where we control the terrain." Sub-Commander Kekstar studied the tactical implications of this strategy. "Sir, that will leave our other conquests undefended. The humans could recapture dozens of star systems while we wait at the homeworld." "Let them," General Kekstar replied grimly. "Those conquests mean nothing if we lose this war. The humans have taught us that territory is worthless if you cannot hold it. We will force them into a conventional battle where our superior numbers still matter." News of the Vorthak withdrawal reached Earth Command within days. Admiral Subin called an emergency meeting to discuss the human response. The alien strategy represented both an opportunity and a significant risk. If the humans attacked the Vorthak homeworld and lost, the war would be over. But if they succeeded, they could end the conflict permanently. "Admiral, this could be exactly what we have been waiting for," argued Colonel Taeho. "The Vorthak are finally offering us the type of battle that our new technologies can dominate." "Admiral," Subin turned to her intelligence chief commander, Nara. "What do we know about Vorthak defensive capabilities at their homeworld?" "Sir, they have impressive fixed fortifications and planetary defense systems," Nara replied. "But our analysis suggests that they designed those defenses to stop conventional attacks. They may not be effective against our unconventional methods." The decision was made to launch Operation Final Target. Admiral Dongwu would lead a fleet that appeared much smaller than its actual size. Engineer Jae-min had developed breakthrough stealth technology that could make human ships virtually invisible to Vorthak sensors. The aliens would think they were facing a desperate last attack by a weakened enemy. Engineer Jae-min explained his innovation to the assembled fleet commanders. The stealth system works by hiding our ships within their own energy signatures. One ship can look like a dozen on enemy sensors. A dozen ships can appear to be just one. We can make the Vorthok think our fleet is either much larger or much smaller than it actually is. Admiral Dongwu studied the technical specifications with growing excitement. So we can appear weak when we are strong and strong when we are weak. The aliens will never know our true capabilities until we choose to reveal them. Exactly, Admiral, Jamin confirmed. But the system has limitations. It only works as long as we maintain strict communication discipline. Any unnecessary transmissions could reveal our real positions. Preparation for the final assault took 3 months. During that time, diplomatic officer Ga-un worked on a secret project that could change everything. She had been quietly establishing communication with Vorthak civilians through captured prisoners and intercepted transmissions. Admiral, I believe there is significant opposition to this war among the Vorthak civilian population, Ga-un reported to Admiral Subin. They are suffering economically because so many resources are being devoted to military operations. Some are beginning to question whether conquering humanity is worth the cost. Can we exploit that opposition? Admiral Subin asked. Possibly, sir, Ga-un replied. If we can demonstrate that their military cannot protect them, we might be able to encourage internal rebellion. The Vorthak Empire has always maintained control through fear of external enemies. If that fear shifts to their own military leadership, their society could collapse from within. The human fleet departed for Vorthak space using routes that had been carefully scouted over months of preparation. Admiral Dongwu commanded from his flagship, while smaller task forces approached the enemy homeworld from multiple directions. The aliens would think they were facing several separate attacks instead of one coordinated assault. Philosopher soldier, Wu Jin served as Admiral Dongwu's strategic advisor during the journey to Vorthak Prime. His job was to help the Admiral understand the psychological aspects of this final confrontation. Admiral, this battle is not really about military victory, Wu Jin observed. It is about proving that human creativity can overcome any challenge. We are fighting to demonstrate that adaptation and innovation are more powerful than traditional military strength. Admiral Dongwu nodded thoughtfully. The Vorthak believe that warfare is about overwhelming your enemies with superior force. We need to show them that warfare is actually about solving problems that your enemies cannot solve. When the human fleet finally appeared at the edge of Vorthak space, General Kekstar felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. After months of unpredictable guerrilla attacks, he was finally facing an enemy that was coming to him directly. His sensors showed what appeared to be about 50,000 human ships approaching his homeworld. Sir, the human fleet is smaller than we expected, reported sensor operator Zixnall. Our intelligence suggested they had more vessels available. Perhaps they are holding reserves in case this attack fails, General Kekstar replied. No matter. We have 8-to-1 numerical superiority. This battle will end the war. What the Vorthak general did not know was that the 50,000 ships his sensors detected were actually 200,000 vessels using Jamin stealth technology. The humans had achieved complete tactical surprise while appearing to be at a severe disadvantage. The battle began when Admiral Dongwu ordered his fleet to drop their stealth systems simultaneously. Suddenly, the Vorthak found themselves facing 4 times as many enemies as they had prepared to fight. But the humans had additional surprises that went far beyond simple numbers. The human ships moved in patterns that violated everything the Vorthak knew about space combat. Vessels appeared and disappeared seemingly at random. Attacks came from directions that should have been empty space. Most disturbing of all, the human fleet seemed to be learning and adapting its tactics in real time. Sir, the enemy vessels are using some kind of quantum displacement technology, reported Navigator Kekstor with panic in his voice. They can appear and disappear anywhere within the battle zone. Our targeting systems cannot track them effectively. General Kekstar watched his carefully planned defense collapse into chaos. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They used the space around the planet like humans had used the asteroid fields. Every piece of debris became a hiding place. Every energy signature became a potential deception. All units concentrate fire on the largest human vessels, the general ordered desperately. If we can destroy their command ships, their coordination will break down. But the humans had anticipated this strategy. The ships that appeared to be command vessels were actually decoys using advanced holographic projectors. The real command ships looked like ordinary fighters, and move throughout the battle without being detected by Vorthak forces. Admiral Dongwu coordinated the entire engagement from what appeared to be a small escort vessel. His real flagship was hidden among hundreds of similar-looking ships. Even if the Vorthak discovered his true location, they could not target him without destroying dozens of other vessels. The battle raged for 6 hours. During that time, the humans demonstrated every lesson they had learned during the previous year of warfare. They used deception, misdirection, and adaptation to turn the Vorthak numerical advantage into a liability. Large alien formations became easy targets for concentrated attacks. Fixed defensive positions were bypassed entirely. "Sir, we have lost 60% of our fleet," Sub-Commander Vextar reported to General Kextar. "The humans are systematically destroying our defensive capability. If this continues, we will lose the ability to protect the homeworld." General Kextar stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. 1 year ago, he had commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Now he was watching that force be dismantled by an enemy that refused to fight according to any logical rules. "Sir, we are receiving surrender offers from several human commanders," Vextar announced. "They are willing to negotiate terms for ending this conflict." For the first time, General Kextar realized that the humans were not trying to destroy the Vorthak Empire completely. They were offering a way out of this impossible war. The choice was surrender or face complete military defeat. The outcome that had once seemed impossible was now inevitable. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Vorthak Prime ended the greatest war in galactic history. The conference room aboard the space station Unity 1 overlooked the rebuilt shipyards of former Vorthak space. Ships from dozens of different species worked, side by side, constructing vessels for the new galactic coalition. General Kextar entered the conference room wearing the simple uniform of a military advisor rather than the elaborate armor of a Vorthak commander. His red eyes no longer burned with anger and conquest. Instead, they showed the wisdom of someone who had learned difficult lessons about the nature of conflict. "Admiral Dongwu, the quarterly security reports are ready for your review," Kextar announced as he placed data tablets on the conference table. Admiral Dongwu looked up from his own paperwork and smiled at his former enemy. "Thank you, General. Your insights into conventional military doctrine continue to be valuable for our peacekeeping operations." The transformation of General Kextar from conqueror to peacekeeper had been one of the most remarkable outcomes of the war. After the Vorthak surrender, he had spent months studying human military philosophy. What he discovered changed his entire understanding of warfare and civilization. "Admiral, I have been reviewing the reports from the Triangulum sector," Kextar said as he sat down across from his human colleague. 3 different species are involved in territorial disputes. They are all following traditional military strategies that will lead to prolonged conflict and massive casualties. "What do you recommend?" Admiral Dongwu asked. "We should send Ambassador Sung Min with a team of human advisors," Kextar replied. "These species need to learn that there are alternatives to conventional warfare. They need to understand that conflicts can be resolved through creativity rather than destruction." Ambassador Sung Min had become one of the most respected diplomats in the galaxy. His job was helping former Vorthak territories integrate into the new galactic government. More importantly, he taught other species the human approach to problem solving that emphasized adaptation and innovation over force. "Ambassador, the Rigel Council is requesting assistance with their resource allocation disputes," reported his aide captain. "Yuna, 17 different worlds cannot agree on mining rights in their system." Sungmin studied the details of the dispute while walking through the corridors of Unity Station. "Captain, this is not really about mining rights. This is about trust and communication. These worlds have never learned how to work together because they always relied on superior force to resolve disagreements." The human approach to post-war reconstruction had surprised everyone, including many humans themselves. Instead of occupying conquered territories or demanding tribute payments, humanity had focused on teaching other species new ways to think about cooperation and conflict resolution. Dr. Yu Jin worked in the Galactic History Institute, documenting how the war had changed civilization throughout the galaxy. Her research showed that human military philosophy was spreading rapidly among species that had never encountered such concepts before. "The most significant change is not technological," Dr. Yu Jin explained to her research team. "Other species are learning to think creatively about problems that they previously solved through violence. They are discovering that adaptation and innovation can achieve better results than traditional conquest. Captain Heejin represented the new generation of human officers who had grown up during the war years. She commanded a mixed crew that included former Vorthak warriors alongside human personnel. Her ship served as a model for the type of cooperation that was becoming common throughout the galaxy. Captain, we are receiving a distress call from the Deneb system, reported her communications. Officer Ensign Junho, a cargo convoy is under attack by raiders using old Vorthak military equipment. Captain Hyejin studied the tactical situation on her display screens. Ensign, signal the convoy that we are responding to their emergency, but instead of engaging the raiders directly, we are going to demonstrate why their attack strategy is fundamentally flawed. The raiders were using conventional military tactics that had been effective before the war. They surrounded the convoy with superior numbers and demanded surrender. What they did not expect was a human response that turned their advantages into weaknesses. All hands, this is the captain, Hyejin announced over the ship's communication system. We are going to show these raiders why the age of simple military conquest is over. Prepare for Operation Creative Solution. The human ship approached the raider formation using stealth technology developed during the war. Instead of attacking directly, they began broadcasting detailed tactical analysis of the raiders' weaknesses. The transmissions were designed to be intercepted by both the raiders and the convoy ships. Raider vessels, your formation has 17 critical vulnerabilities, Captain Heejin announced on an open channel. Your fuel consumption rate indicates you cannot maintain this position for more than 6 hours. Your communication pattern suggests poor coordination between ships. Most importantly, your attack strategy assumes that your targets will respond conventionally. The convoy ships began implementing the tactical suggestions in the human broadcasts. Instead of waiting passively for rescue, they started using their cargo containers as improvised weapons. The raiders found themselves facing an enemy that was adapting faster than they could adjust their strategy. This is Raider Leader Rexton, came a transmission from the attacking force. Human vessel, we demand that you withdraw immediately. This territory does not concern your species. Raider Leader, this territory concerns every species that values peaceful commerce. Captain Hyejin replied calmly. But we are not here to fight you. We are here to offer you better alternatives to piracy. What followed was not a battle but a negotiation that demonstrated how human diplomatic methods had evolved during the war years. The raiders were offered legitimate employment with the Galactic Coalition in exchange for abandoning their attacks on civilian shipping. Most accepted the offer rather than face the type of creative opposition that had defeated the Vorthak Empire. Back on Unity Station, Admiral Dongwu met with representatives from across the galaxy to discuss the long-term implications of humanity's impact on galactic civilization. The conference room was filled with species that had once been enemies but were now working together on common projects. Admiral, the latest reports show a 60% reduction in interstellar conflicts since the establishment of the coalition, announced Coordinator Veltar, a former Vorthak intelligence officer who now worked for Galactic Peacekeeping. Operations. Fleet Admiral Dongwu reviewed the statistical analysis with satisfaction. Coordinator, those numbers represent more than just reduced violence. They represent a fundamental change in how civilized species approach disagreements. The transformation had been gradual but unmistakable. Across the galaxy, species were learning to solve problems through creativity and cooperation rather than force and conquest. The human concept of endless targets had evolved into endless solutions as other civilizations discovered the power of adaptive thinking. Sir, we have a request from the Andromeda Contact Mission, reported his aide commander Minsu. They want human advisors to accompany their first diplomatic mission to the neighboring galaxy. Apparently, our reputation for unconventional problem-solving has spread beyond our own galactic region. Admiral Dongwu smiled as he considered the implications. Commander informed the contact mission that we would be honored to assist, but remind them that the most important thing we can teach other species is not how to fight wars. It is how to avoid needing to fight wars in the first place. The legacy of the Vorthak War had become something that no one had expected when Captain Dongwu first faced General Kextar in deep space. The human response to overwhelming odds had not just won a military conflict. It had fundamentally changed how intelligent species throughout the galaxy approach the challenge of living together peacefully. In the end, The greatest victory was not the defeat of the Vorthak Empire. It was the discovery that creativity and adaptation could solve problems that had seemed impossible for thousands of years. The phrase endless targets had become a galactic symbol not for destruction but for the unlimited potential of intelligent beings working together to build something better than what they had inherited. The war was over, but the human way of thinking continued to spread throughout the stars. Captain Dongwu's simple response to an alien general's boast had started a revolution in how civilized species understood conflict, cooperation, and the infinite possibilities that emerged when creativity replaced conquest as the foundation of interstellar relations.